got our legs all made up, so we're gonna start doing our rails. So remember last time I glued up these boards here because they're a little bit too skinny. Get that light to focus in. There we go. So I have two boards here that make up a rail. I have them about 24 inches long, and that's gonna make up 2 rails per board. So I have all my rails here, and what I'll do is I gotta get them down to 3/4 of an inch on the planer, so I need to take off a little bit from each side. So again, we have our split right here where we put our boards together. There we go. Our split right there. So I want to take a little bit off this side and a little bit off this side. So as I run through the planer, it's gonna go this way, flip it. So we have that seam, that glue seam down the middle. I'm gonna take a measurement and see where I am now. Right now I'm at a little under an inch, so around 15/16. And there you go. And then what I'm gonna do is plane them down, and I'm gonna get them down to, I said 3/4, but what I want to do is actually get them a little bit thicker than 3/4, so 1/16 over, so 13/16. And then we got to do some stuff to make our drawer front. So we got to actually make this rail right here with a hole in it, so we can make our drawer go in and out of our project. So what I'm gonna do off camera is I'm gonna plane these down to 13/16, a little bit thicker than 3/4, and we'll start making that drawer or the rail to accept our drawer. Okay, back from the planer. I got my boards down to 13/16, and that's a little bit over 3/4 of an inch. So now what I'm going to do is kind of pick the board that I want to see the face of. So I'm going to try to pick the one I like looking at the most. I think I like this guy right here. So I'm going to use this as the face of the board here, so I can look at it, pull the drawer out of this part here. It'll make sense in a second. So what I'm going to do now is focus on just the front part of the rail here. I just pointed something you can't see here, so let me do that. I'm going to focus on this rail right here. Okay, so to do that, I'm going to rough cut this first. Remember we cut these at 24, and our finish number is 11. So I'm going to go ahead and lop this off at 12 feet. 12 feet, no, that'd be 12 inches. 12 inches on the chop saw. So I'm just gonna make a quick cut there. Set everything else aside for now and just focus on the front rail. So I guess you don't need to see me cross cut this on the chop saw. So I'll cut this and then we'll meet at the table saw to explain the next steps. Okay, back from the chop saw, I have my piece of wood that I'm going to make into my rail front that accepts my drawer. I got one nice jointed edge here and a rough edge here. I want my finished number to be 4 inches from here to here. So I'm not going to cut it to 4 inches yet for this part. I'm going to cut it to 4 1/4. It's not going to make a lot of sense quite yet, but just stay with me for a second and then I'll explain why I'm cutting it to 4 1/4. So I'm going to set my table saw to 4 1/4, and then make my cut. So let me get the dust collectors on. Alright, I got my board cut to 4 1/4, and now I'm going to set my table saw for 3/4 of an inch. And again, this is going to be confusing. At the end, it's not going to be that confusing. So I'm drawing these little drawings on here so I can help line up my board later. So take a little note of what's going on here. Then I'm going to readjust for 3/4 of an inch. And I'm going to make 2 cuts. 1. Then flip it over. And 2. So you can see those lines lining back up the way I cut that off. So that's on the table saw. Now we're going to go to the chop saw and cut the middle out of it for the drawer front, for the drawer to kind of nestle in there. All right, we got our drawer front sitting here. What we're going to do now is cut the center out of it and use that for our drawer front. So we're going to take these 2 pieces away, focus on the middle piece. I'm going to flip it over so those lines aren't in our way, and I'm going to use this for my layout. I want to find about the center of here. This is about a 12-inch board, so half a 12 is 6. Because it's still in the rough size, we're okay if we're off a little bit on that middle section. So all I do is a line there. And then I'm gonna make that line a little bit bigger with my square. And then I'm gonna grab a measurement from our project real quick to make sure I'm on the right track. So give me a second. Well, I'll go take it with me. So what I wanna do is make sure that my drawer front is the right length. When I say drawer front, that term can be interchangeable with opening, so drawer opening. So I wanna make sure that this size is the one I'm cutting correctly. And it would help if I remember my tape measurement. So I want it to be 7 inches. Good. Let's go back to the chop saw. And we'll make that 7 inches. So half of 7 is 3.5. So what I want to do is measure from that line, and I want to come over 3.5 inches. I want to come over 3.5 inches. So I'll focus you back on the work here. And we are. So I'm going to come over 3.5 and 3.5. And again, that lighting is not so good, but I take it by now you can measure 3.5 inches. So I'm just going to use the long part of the tape measure here and just stick my number or line on any random number and then count over 3.5 inches from that number. So 1, 2, 3.5. And then 1, 2, 3.5. All right, so make those lines a little bit bigger. Double check to make sure that in fact it is 7 inches between those lines and make those 2 cuts. All right, that's looking good. All right, so we're gonna keep all of this. This is gonna be our drawer front. These are gonna be our rails. So let me make those cuts. And before I do that, let's talk about how to make these cuts safely. You always want to hold the long part of the board. So the waist side is going to be this side right there. So we're going to put the blade on this side of the board. So we get that lined up, make that cut, and you want to keep both, so be careful to keep both pieces. So one nice cut. Just like that. What I'll do is make a line right here so I know, or maybe make a symbol like A and A, so I know my 2 A's go together, and then B and B, so 2 B's go together. All right, so let's take a look at what we got here. So this get set aside for now. And oh, I lost my little line. So now we gotta put this back together the way it came out. And unfortunately, I lost my little line. I didn't draw it deep enough. So I'll have to match it up by the grain pattern, which that looks reasonable. Or does this look reasonable? Yeah, like that. So there's our hole for our drawer opening. So what we're going to do next is glue this together and do it in a way that our drawer front is going to live inside of there. So I'll meet you back at the bench and we'll glue this together.